Oh, right, I'm back on home soil after a pretty crazy week. I've been getting about. I spent a couple of days out in Chamonix in the French Alps for UTMB. Some pretty cool things out there with Hoka and sports shoes. I ran the vertical kilometre, which is basically just running up a mountain, 1,000 metres of elevation gain over the span of 3 kilometres. Out from the village, up to the top of the mountain. Horrific, it was really hot, and then I paraglided back down. No words for that kind of experience. I don't know how I've managed to wangle all this stuff. Feels too good to be true a lot of the time at this point. And then I made my way over to Austria to take part in my first Ironman 70.3 that I've been training for the last 4 months now, pretty much. And this is what this video is going to be about. My experience over in Zell for the Ironman 70.3 and my race day experience, etc. So let's have it. I've also picked up a new camera after 5 years with my Sony a7 III, and so far it is unbelievable. Insert some of the footage from UTMB. But enough about that, let's get into the Ironman. So the event that I decided to sign up to was the Ironman 70.3 Zell. Now this is located in the Austrian Alps. Unbelievable place, beautiful scenery out there, which is why I chose it. Well, one of the main reasons why I chose it. I wanted to race in the mountains, and secondly, the lake swim. It's in Lake Zell, which is renowned for being one of the nicest, if not the nicest lake swims in the entire Ironman and triathlon scene. So it was a no-brainer for me because I ain't signing up to one that's got a sea swim. I flew over from Geneva to Salzburg on the Friday. Had a right stinker to start, to be fair. They didn't put my suitcase on the plane. So I landed in Salzburg. My suitcase with all the wetsuit and tri-suit, etc. was still in Frankfurt. Horrendous start to the weekend. And then I collected Keith, who was going to be staying with us for the weekend. He's the videographer who's going to be capturing the event. Basically, all the footage that you see from the Ironman was captured by this Don. He's an absolute geezer. I'll link his Instagram in the description and go and check out his stuff. He's an absolute demon behind the camera. Pretty long travel day on the Friday for both of us. So when we got to the gaff, we just chilled, unpacked the bike and built it back up and stuff like that. Went to bed and then got ready for a Saturday, which we were going to be doing just a little bit of like a shakeout ride, meeting up with some of the other people that we knew from Instagram who were doing the event. Went to registration, got our bibs, and then we did the race briefing, all that kind of admin stuff that you have to do the day before the race. Never done an Ironman event before, so the race briefing was quite helpful. They just sort of spout a ton of information at you and you have to just sort of soak it up. I left feeling a little bit more nervous, to be fair, after that briefing, just because there are so many things you have to remember and all the admin and the prep the day before the race, dropping your transition bags off, making sure you've got everything in your transition bags, etc. It's a lot of faff. Friday pretty chilled, Saturday afternoon, and then an early night ready for race day. Before we knew it, we were up bright and early on the Sunday, race day morning. It didn't actually start until 11 a.m, which is a pretty late start. I think I'm used to like 9 a.m, if not earlier starts for these events. So having a bit of a line in the morning was all right. I scoffed down some porridge like I normally do, electrolyte drinks, etc. Then we made our way over from our gaff to the race start. When we made it to the start, I was actually pretty chilled out. Normally, when it comes to these events, I get quite nervous, but I think because I'd done the T100 Olympic distance prior to this, I had an idea of what it was going to be. It wasn't the first time I've ever done a triathlon, so helped quell the nerves quite a bit. And also, to be honest with you, I know it's boring to say, but I didn't have a goal time. My training over the last few weeks has been very suboptimal with the travel and that sort of stuff. I've not been able to stick down the sessions that I wanted to originally. I think because of that, it took a bit of the pressure off, so I was pretty chilled on the day. And normally I'd be pretty nervous for the swim, but when we got there, the lake was perfect. Honestly, it's like so picturesque. It's like blue turquoisey water, super calm and still, pretty warm. I think it was about 22 degrees on the day. And for once, I was actually buzzing to get in the water and do the swim. Been putting in quite a lot of hours in the pool, to be honest, and I've become a lot more comfortable with freestyle. So I was excited to get the wetsuit on and go swimming in like a beautiful lake, basically. Also, another thing that they did that was sick was they let you acclimatise in the lake a couple of minutes before, well, you know, half an hour or so before the actual event itself. One of the main things that I struggled with at the T100 was you just get straight into the water, no acclimatisation, and your breathing is all over the gaff. It's impossible to get comfortable. Having that acclimatisation period where I could go in, get my wetsuit on, get ready, and go and swim and see what it's like was very helpful indeed. Actually, I really enjoyed it. So I was actually really excited for the swim bizarrely, I didn't think I would ever be saying that until I actually got in the water, and it was a mass start, which I didn't realise exactly what that meant or what it was. In the T100 we were sort of staggered, so about 20 people would go out and then there would be a minute or two before the next group come out, whereas at the Ironman Zell, pretty much you just roll in. Like 5 people go in, 1 second later another 5 go in, 1 second later another 5 go in. So I found myself surrounded by people, limbs flying everywhere, getting kicked everywhere, kicking people, and yeah, the first, I don't know, about 1,000 meters, I was pretty uncomfortable with that, bizarrely. I just didn't like being so close and claustrophobic around other people. It was something that put me off quite a lot. So I ended up not doing freestyle as much as I wanted to, because when I start to panic or someone kicks me or I lose track of my breathing, my default is just to go to breaststroke. That is what I did basically for quite a lot of the swim, unfortunately. That said, I wasn't displeased with the swim overall. I ended up with a time of 42.09, which is a pace of 2 minutes and 13 per 100 meters. Pretty standard for me, really. I've definitely got more to give in the swim if I can freestyle a bit more next time. And then it was just a case of making my way over to T1 and getting ready for the bike, which I was absolutely buzzing for. Had the biggest itch in the last few months to ride my bike somewhere abroad on the smooth roads, in the heat, in the mountains, and this was that opportunity. I've been waiting for so long just to rip the bike in a beautiful place and see what I can do, because I've spent so much time on the bike over this last 4 months of training. That's been like the priority focus for me, because I've been enjoying it the most. It's also where you can obviously save the most time. I got through T1 in 9 minutes and 6 seconds. Pretty slow, but I'm not Jan-Frodeno. I was chilling, taking my time, just making sure everything was prepared for the bike course, because that is where we were going to have ourselves some fun and try and make up some time on the event. Now the course itself is actually pretty brutal, especially to stick in between the swim and the run on an Ironman 70.3 event. It's 90 kilometers long, of course, with 1,000 meters of elevation gain, of which the bulk was just up one 13-kilometer climb fairly early on into the ride as well. Climb started at about the 25k mark, and it was going to be the make or break point for quite a lot of people out on the course. Now for context, the bike is at this point by far my strongest discipline, and I wanted to see what I could do on the smooth roads, on the Van Rysel, in the sun. I got slightly carried away. I say slightly carried away, I got extremely carried away, and I raced the bike leg pretty much like I didn't have to run a half marathon after it. I was PBing pretty much every distance. It was the best ride I've ever had in my life. I'll put the stats and that on the screen. I think it took me about 2 hours and 59 minutes overall, an average speed of 30 kilometers an hour. And I have to say, I loved it. I loved every second of that bike ride. It was a beautiful scenic route through the mountains. The climb was pretty decent. I had really good legs. I've trained quite a lot of hills in the last 4 months, so got up there okay. I had quite a lot left in my legs at that point, and then the descent down, man, beautiful. It was quite techie at first, quite like sharp corners and that initially, but then it opened up in 10-15 kilometers, just averaging about 50 k's an hour down the mountain. It was unreal. That was the first mistake I made, absolutely gunning it on the bike with no regard for the fact I had to run a half marathon afterwards. And the second mistake I made was I was consuming a lot more food and liquid on the bike than I had planned to because of the heat. I felt like I was going to be dehydrated. It was pretty hot on the day, about 26, 27 degrees. I brought with me 2 bidons with carb mixing, but I'd finished them like pretty early on into the race, so I knew I was going to have to take on some more electrolytes and other water and stuff like that. So by the time I'd finished the bike, I stepped off, I unclipped, started to run into T2 with my bike, and legs were jelly, legs were killing me, and my belly was just sloshing all over the place. I had about 2.5 litres of water in me, a couple of gels. It was horrendous. It felt like I'd just eaten a Sunday roast, and still had 21 kilometres to run, so it was going to be a pretty rough run segment.
I'm with you.
Too hard on the bike.
Oh, yeah, did you?
Fucking hell, yeah.
Why? What do you feel?
My legs are fucking killing me. My stomach's a bit dodgy as well.
Is it? What are you feeling?
Taking on weird gels and that.
Yeah, I think
It's going to be a long one. I'm going to have to strap.
I think your body's just gonna have to hold on now.
Yeah, it'll be good.
Yeah, go smash it. Take care, man.
My PB in the half is 1:46, so I figured if I could go out and aim for a 2-hour or sub 2-hour half, that would be a pretty decent achievement for me. However, initially, after the first 2 kilometres, I think the first K was 5:18, and then the second was 5:30, and then from there, I was just clinging on clinging on. Everything was hurting me, my legs, getting a stitch in my belly because of all the shit that was just sloshing around in there. And it was a case of just seeing how long I could cling on before I inevitably stopped and walked and stuff like that. So the approach I eventually ended up adopting was just every 2.5 kilometers, I think they had an aid station. So I'd run 2.5k and then just walk through the aid station, picking up whatever I fancied, pouring water on my head, sponges down my back, ice down my pants, and just trying to take on whatever I could stomach. But because my belly was so full, I really did struggle to take on gels and stuff like that. I just felt like I would have been sick if I took on any more gels than I'd already had. It just became one of them runs that you wanted to end right away, a proper sufferfest. And to be honest, I deserved it. I hadn't put that much training into the running over the last 4 months because I've been prioritising the bike and learning to swim. And just went too hard on the bike, self-inflicted. But I ended up coming across the finish line eventually in about 2 hours and 14 minutes, I think it was. By far the worst run of my life. Half an hour slower than my PB pretty much. Pretty staggering how the accumulative fatigue from the swim and donning the bike just add up, and it affects you more than you think. And I also underestimated the distance. I thought on paper I can do a 1900 metre swim, can do a 90 kilometre bike with a bit of climbing, and I can run a half marathon pretty comfortably as well, but God, together, no. It was really difficult. Don't underestimate that distance because it ended up taking me 6 hours and 14 minutes to complete my first Ironman 70.3. It's a long time on your feet doing exercise. Regardless of who you are, it will probably humble you. Obviously in training you can try and simulate it with brick sessions and that, but never quite the same, is it? And on race day things often don't go to plan, no matter how dialed you think your nutrition is. Sometimes the heat will affect you, whatever, just how you feel on the day might affect you, and it doesn't always go to plan. So yeah, I was super happy with how it ended, to be honest. I got what I deserved pretty much. But the experience and the event was phenomenal. I will absolutely be doing another Ironman 70.3 at some point. I don't know when. Hopefully when I have got a bit more running fitness. But yeah, overall experience was just boss. Like meeting a load of new people from Instagram who have similar interests. I love that shit. And this is exactly the kind of thing I want to be doing. Going out to these events to experience them myself, capture them on video with videographers and stuff like that to look back on, because I love this shit, man. I absolutely love it. The fact I get to do this stuff for a living is, honestly, I don't even know what to say about it. It's just boss. So thanks so much if you've watched this far, and I'll probably see you soon enough in the next one, because from now I am going to be training for the Honolulu Marathon. Yeah, nice one. See you again.